Relationship. One of the most dangerous traits a believer can have, and one that Allah has made very clear He dislikes, is arrogance. Arrogance is subtle. Relationship. It doesn't always come in the form of someone standing tall with their chest puffed out, looking down on everyone. Relationship. Sometimes it hides behind small thoughts, quiet feelings of superiority, or that little voice in our minds that says, relationship, I'm better than them. It can show up in how we speak, how we deal with others, and even in how we view our own faith. Relationship. The Prophet A taught us that even a mustard seed of arrogance in the heart can prevent someone from entering paradise. Why? Relationship. Because arrogance is not just an attitude, it is a spiritual disease. At its core, arrogance is when we forget who we are in front of Allah. Relationship. We forget that no matter what we achieve, no matter how knowledgeable, wealthy, or influential we become, we are still entirely dependent on Him. It is when we start attributing our success to our own doing, rather than seeing it as a blessing and test from the Almighty. Think about how arrogance poisons relationships. A person who is arrogant struggles to truly love, forgive, or support others because they are always comparing, always feeling above or beyond. Even when they help someone, relationship, they may secretly seek recognition or feel a sense of superiority over the person they assisted. Spiritually, relationship, arrogance blocks humility, the very quality that opens the door to mercy, guide, and wisdom. And there's another dimension here. Relationship, arrogance makes us blind to our own flaws. When we are busy feeling superior, we stop reflecting, we stop improving. We might even justify sins because we think, I pray more than them, so this small wrong won't matter. Or relationship, at least I'm better than those people. This mindset is dangerous because it keeps us stagnant and distances us from repentance and growth. Look at Shaitan's story. He worshipped Allah for thousands of years, but was cast out of paradise because of one moment of arrogance. Relationship, refusing to bow to Adam. He thought he was better, that his origin made him superior. That one thought of pride cost him everything. Relationship, when we let arrogance take root, even in small ways, we are walking in that same dangerous path without realizing it. Humility, on the other hand, is liberating. It allows us to recognize our mistakes without shame, to forgive others with ease, and to remain grounded no matter how high we rise in life. True humility doesn't mean belittling yourself. Relationship, it means knowing your worth, but never forgetting that everything you have is from Allah. So tonight, take a moment to ask yourself, relationship, am I holding on to something in my heart that makes me feel above others? Have I forgotten that without Allah? Relationship, I am nothing, because the one who humbles themselves for Allah is the one Allah raises. Relationship, and the one who insists on walking with arrogance will eventually find that the ground beneath them gives way. Relationship. Another thing that Allah dislikes in His believers is when we neglect our Salah and the obligations He has placed upon us. Relationship. And let me be very clear, I'm not talking about those moments when you genuinely struggle, when you're trying to improve. Relationship. When you're making an effort but still find it hard. Allah loves effort and He rewards every sincere step. What He dislikes is when we deliberately put our prayers and our obligations aside. When we treat them as if they are optional or as if other things in life are more important. Salah is not just a ritual. Relationship, it is the lifeline of the believer. It's the direct connection between you and your Creator. Relationship, the one thing that keeps your heart anchored in a world that is constantly pulling you in every direction. But when we neglect it, even subtly, relationship, what we are really saying, whether we realize it or not, is, I don't need that connection right now. Relationship, I'll handle life myself. That thought alone is dangerous because it is in those very moments that we are most vulnerable to falling into darkness. Relationship. And here's something many people don't consider. Neglecting our obligations slowly changes us from the inside. Relationship. It's not just about missing a prayer here or there. It's that the heart becomes less sensitive to guidance. At first, relationship, you feel a little guilty when you delay a prayer. Then over time, that guilt fades. Before long, relationship, prayer becomes something you do only when it's convenient. Relationship, That slow erosion of the heart is far more dangerous than a single missed prayer, because it numbs you to your need for Allah. Relationship. Think about the psychology of consistency. When you pray on time, you are training your heart to put Allah first. You're saying to yourself, relationship, no matter how busy I am, no matter what's happening, Allah is my priority. That builds discipline, focus, relationship, and a kind of inner peace that no self-help book or motivational speaker can give you. But when you neglect it, relationship, you're training your heart in the opposite direction, to prioritize the dunya, to seek comfort or success without guidance, relationship, and to think you are self-sufficient, even in our obligations beyond Salah, fasting, zakat, relationship, honesty in dealings. There is wisdom that goes beyond the act itself. These duties are not meant to burden us. They are designed to purify us, relationship, to keep us balanced and to remind us of our purpose. When we choose to ignore them, relationship, what we are really doing is stepping away from the very things that protect and elevate us. So tonight, reflect honestly. Relationship. How many times have you delayed your prayer because you were scrolling on your phone? How often have you told yourself, relationship, I'll get to it later, only to forget? The reality is simple. Life can end in a heartbeat. And when it does, relationship, only that connection with Allah will matter. Hold on to it now, guard it fiercely. Relationship, and never let the world convince you that anything else is more important. Relationship, another trait that Allah dislikes, and one that destroys trust in families, communities, and even nations, is dishonesty and betrayal. A relationship, when you think about it, every meaningful relationship in life, whether with Allah or with people, is built on trust. Without it, nothing stands. Relationship, when a believer lies, breaks promises, or betrays what has been entrusted to them, they are not just harming someone else. Relationship, they are harming their own soul, chipping away at the very integrity that makes them beloved to Allah. Relationship. The Prophet said that among the signs of a hypocrite is that when he speaks, he lies. When he makes a promise, he breaks it. And when he is trusted, relationship, he betrays that trust. Notice how all three signs are tied to truth and reliability. This isn't just about telling a false story or keeping a secret. Relationship, it's about the state of your heart, whether people can rely on your word, whether your character aligns with your faith. Psychologically, relationship, dishonesty eats away at a person's peace. You can put on a confident face and pretend to be unaffected, but deep down, there is always that tension. Relationship, that awareness that you are living a lie. And from a spiritual perspective, lying distances you from Allah. Relationship, because the very foundation of faith, iman, is built on truth. The word siddiq, meaning a person of truthfulness. Relationship is one of the highest ranks in the sight of Allah. Betrayal is even more corrosive. Whether it's betraying a friend's confidence, relationship, being dishonest in business, or breaking a commitment you made to your spouse or family, betrayal leaves wounds that are hard to heal. Relationship, and the irony is that many people justify their betrayal. They convince themselves that it was necessary, relationship, or that the other person deserved it. But Allah knows the intentions of our hearts. Relationship, and He has made it clear that He does not love those who are treacherous. There's also a communal cost. Relationship. Imagine a society where lying and betrayal are normal. Contracts mean nothing, friendships are shallow, and leaders are corrupt. Relationship. That society collapses from within because there's no foundation of trust to hold it together. Relationship. That is why Islam emphasizes truthfulness not just as a personal virtue, but as a pillar of a healthy and just community. Relationship. Living with integrity is not always easy. Sometimes speaking the truth or honoring a commitment costs you money, status, or comfort. Relationship. But what you gain in the sight of Allah is far greater: a clean heart, a clear conscience, and the barakah that comes from being trustworthy. Relationship. So reflect on this tonight when people hear your name. Do they think of someone whose word can be relied on? Or do they hesitate? Relationship. Unsure of your sincerity. Because the believer's honor is not in how loudly they claim faith, but in how faithfully they live it. Relationship. Be the person whose truthfulness is a shield, whose trustworthiness is an act of worship, because that is the believer Allah loves. Relationship. Another thing that Allah dislikes in His believers. Something that quietly destroys hearts and relationships is backbiting and slander. Relationship. It's one of those sins that often doesn't feel as serious in the moment, yet its damage can be deeper than we imagine. Relationship. The Prophet described backbiting very clearly. It's speaking about your brother or sister in a way they would dislike. A relationship, even if what you are saying is true. And if what you are saying isn't true, then it becomes slander, a sin even heavier. The danger with backbiting is that it's easy to justify. A relationship, we convince ourselves we're just venting, or that the person deserves it, or that it's harmless because they will never hear it. Relationship. But the reality is, every time we speak about someone behind their back, we're tearing away at the dignity of another believer. Relationship. And Allah values the dignity of His servants deeply. Think about the psychological trap this creates. When we talk about others, relationship, we momentarily feel better about ourselves. Relationship, it feeds our ego. At least I'm not like them. But what happens over time is that our hearts become addicted to comparison and judgment. Relationship, instead of looking inward and working on our own flaws, we focus outward, magnifying the flaws of others to avoid confronting our own. Relationship, that's why this sin is so dangerous spiritually. It keeps us stagnant and blinds us to the work we need to do within ourselves. Relationship. And then there's the damage it does to communities. Families fall apart, friendships end, trust erodes. Relationship. All because someone couldn't keep their tongue in check. A single comment whispered in private can spread like wildfire. Relationship. Destroying reputations and breaking hearts. The Prophet warned that a person might say one word, not thinking much of it, relationship, and that word could earn them the anger of Allah and drag them into the hellfire. That's how heavy the tongue can be. From a deeper perspective, relationship, backbiting also reflects a lack of gratitude. If we truly appreciated the blessings and guidance Allah has given us, relationship, we wouldn't spend our time focusing on the faults of others. Instead, we would feel compassion, wanting the best for them. Relationship, just as we want the best for ourselves. Imagine for a moment if every believer guarded their tongue, if we only spoke words that built others. Relationship, reminded them of Allah or brought comfort. Our homes, our workplaces, our masajid would feel completely different. Relationship, that's the community Islam calls us to build. So the next time you find yourself about to mention someone's name, pause. Ask yourself, relationship, would I say this if they were sitting here? If not, let it go. Protect their honor. And in doing so, you protect your own standing with Allah. Relationship, because on the day of judgment, you will need every good deed you can keep. Don't spend them paying for words you never needed to speak. Relationship, one of the qualities that Allah makes very clear He dislikes is injustice and oppression, no matter how small or subtle it may seem. Relationship. And oppression isn't just about tyrants ruling nations or leaders abusing power, though that is the clearest form of it. Relationship. Oppression can live quietly in our everyday lives, in the way we treat our families, in how we handle our business dealings, or even in how we speak to people who have less influence or status than we do. At its root, relationship, oppression is about taking what is not yours, someone's rights, someone's dignity, someone's peace. And when we commit injustice, relationship, what we are really doing is declaring even silently that our desires or our pride matter more than someone else's well-being. That is why Allah warns so strongly against it. Relationship, He tells us through His Prophet, that oppression will be layers of darkness on the day of judgment. Imagine standing in front of Allah and realizing that the pain you caused someone, relationship, the words you spoke that broke their heart, the money you withheld, or the opportunity you stole is now a mountain you must carry alone. Relationship. What makes injustice so dangerous is that it doesn't only harm the person being wronged, it corrodes the heart of the oppressor. Relationship. The more we normalize taking advantage of others, the more numb we become to it. What starts as a small lie in a transaction becomes a habit. Relationship. What starts as snapping at a spouse in anger becomes emotional abuse. Slowly, without realizing it, relationship, we transform our hearts into places where mercy and humility no longer live. And let's not forget the ripple effect. Relationship. When injustice becomes normal in a family, children grow up thinking it's acceptable to belittle or harm others. Relationship. When dishonesty becomes the foundation of a workplace or a community, trust collapses and everyone suffers. Relationship. Allah dislikes injustice because it tears apart the very fabric of the safe, just and compassionate society that Islam is meant to create. Relationship. But the opposite is also true. When you choose justice, when you make a decision to be fair, even when it costs you something. Relationship. When you apologize sincerely to someone you hurt, when you refuse to take what isn't yours, you invite the mercy of Allah into your life. Relationship. You remind yourself and those around you that faith isn't just about prayer and fasting. Relationship, it's about living with integrity and honoring the trust Allah has placed in you. So tonight, take a moment to reflect. Relationship, is there someone whose right you've taken, even in a small way? Someone waiting for an apology or for you to make things right? Relationship. Because the Prophet taught us that Allah may delay the punishment for many sins but oppression. That is something He takes very seriously. Relationship, here and in the hereafter. Be the believer who chooses justice, because the one who stands for justice, even against themselves, she is the one whom Allah Himself defends. Relationship, one of the qualities Allah dislikes in His believers, a quality that can quietly harden the heart, is ingratitude. Relationship. And ingratitude doesn't always look like outright denial of Allah's blessings. Sometimes it's subtle. Relationship, it's when we start to take the gifts of Allah for granted, when we complain more than we thank. Relationship, or when we act as though what we have is entirely because of our own effort, forgetting that every breath, every step, every bit of ease in our lives is from Him. Gratitude in Islam is more than just saying Alhamdulillah with our tongues. Relationship, true gratitude lives in the heart and shows in our actions. It's when you acknowledge deep down that nothing you own, your health, your family, relationship, your wealth, your faith, is truly yours. They are all trusts from Allah given to you temporarily. When we lose that awareness, relationship, we start living with a sense of entitlement. We expect blessings as if they're guaranteed. And when a hardship comes, relationship, we crumble because we built our sense of security on the gift rather than the giver. Psychologically, ingratitude is draining. Relationship, a person who focuses on what they don't have is rarely at peace. They are always chasing, always comparing, always dissatisfied. On the other hand, relationship, gratitude shifts your entire perspective. When you see every small thing, even the air you breathe, the food on your table, relationship, the loved ones around you, as a mercy from Allah, your heart softens, your patience grows. Relationship, and you start to live with a quiet kind of contentment that the world can't shake. Spiritually, gratitude opens doors. Allah promises in the Quran, relationship, if you are grateful, I will surely increase you. That increase isn't only in wealth or health, it's in guidance, in peace, relationship, in barakah that you can't even measure. Ingratitude, on the other hand, slowly closes those doors. Relationship, it distances you from Allah, because when you stop recognizing His favors, you also stop turning to Him sincerely. Relationship, sometimes we think we'll be more grateful when life gets easier, when we get the job, the house, the spouse. Relationship, the opportunity we've been praying for. But gratitude isn't about waiting for a perfect moment. Relationship, it's about choosing to see the blessings that are already here, even in times of difficulty. Relationship, the believer understands that even the tests carry hidden mercies. They bring forgiveness, they build resilience, they remind us to rely only on Allah. Relationship, so take a moment tonight to reflect. When was the last time you thanked Allah? Relationship, not just with your lips, but with your heart. When you truly paused and acknowledged His mercy in your life. Gratitude is not just an act of worship. Relationship, it's a shield against arrogance, impatience, and despair. And the one who thanks Allah in every state will find that even in hardship, their heart is never truly empty.